was sitting in my car, and I just remember weeping in my car because all that darkness, all that shame, all the failure, all the things that I've done since, to spite God, to spite Christians, to spite my husband, they're just the heaviness. I can't even describe the weight.
Wholeness.Legacy podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Margarita with Wholeness.Legacy podcast, and I'm so excited because today I have a special guest. My very first guest is named Kelsey. Starts with a W, and I could never pronounce her last name.
I was going to put the challenge out to you, but it is Kelsey Waliszewski. And I totally get the confusion because I still go by my married name, which I'm now divorced. So it's confusing. I get it.
All right. Well, this is Kelsey
I love it. I'm Waliszewski.
Waliszewski. Hi, everybody. And today we are drinking some coffee. I'm drinking some coffee. Kelsey is drinking some water. And
where's that mug from?
Yeah, that's mug. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome, because I love that.
This mug is from Africa, and I love the giraffes, so I specifically wanted a giraffe mug. So,
and we're in Africa.
Uganda. This one specifically is from Uganda.
That's even more special. So cool.
Yeah. Well, today, guys, we're going to hear all about Kelsey's story. I'll just share briefly about how we met. And we met through some friends. I used to be part of a homeschool group with my kids, and met some wonderful women, and she was part of that group that we met, and we just kind of hit it off. I really liked her, and I think she kind of liked me.
I thought you were the coolest human being, girl. Hey, anyone who mothers 5 children and still keeps a smile on their face and makes time for their community and loves Jesus, it's like, who is that gal? And I want to get to know her. And I feel like a lot of our friends are very similar people that just are inspiring women and individuals.
Inspiring human beings. Yeah. And we are going to we're hoping to inspire you today with Kelsey's story. And she's going to share some... I love it. This is, y'all, we are here. Let me just say, this is what are we? Are we on a Monday?
We're on Monday. I look like I'm dressed to, like, I'm in, not Africa, I can't even, Alaska. And you're, like, beautiful in, like, Hawaii, because that's actually where we are, but...
Just don't let them see my bottoms.
Don't you love that we live in the day and age that we can just wear what we want, bottom down, and then top up, we can dress up and make it look like we're all,
right?
We put in a lot of time and effort.
I actually went to college in San Diego, and I wanted to be a newscaster at first because I wanted to wear pajama bottoms and a nice top and say, it's another sunny day in San Diego.
I did not know that. That's a fun fact for your guests listening.
I ended up not doing that, and that was okay because that was not my calling.
Oh my goodness. How many times have we thought God's calling us into something?
Gosh.
And he makes us do a detour and all the things. Yeah.
One too many, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good because, how they say if he gave you your plan before you, if he gave you the blueprint of your life, you'd run the other way.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that we've gone through, as we're going to hear today, that we probably wouldn't have chosen for ourselves to walk through. For example, for me, if somebody told me when I was getting married, I would have 5 kids in 6 years, I would run the other direction because I had no idea, or actually didn't even want to have kids at all. And I had 5. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But enough about me. What do you think about me? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, all I can say is that God takes us on a lot of detours, but hindsight 2020, they're beautiful detours.
Yes.
And I know you wouldn't trade it in the world to be where you're at, to have 5 kids, to be married to David. I mean, the blessings involved. And like you said, we're going to get into my story, but I look at my story and there's so much currently even that I just never would have chosen for myself. But I see God's blessing in it and his fingerprints on it. But yeah, it's just anyways, crazy.
And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing today, you know, is to share with the world, to help the world first, leave that legacy of wholeness. You know, they say we want our ceiling to be our kids' floor. You know, we want to set them up with all the freedoms that we've, you know, conquered. And we just want the world, both Kelsey and I, our heart for the world is wholeness, is to maybe experience some of our stories that we share and, you know that you're not alone. Know that there's hope. Know that, you know, we've come through so many crazy things, and so can you, you know. You can leave that legacy of wholeness. You can get to that identity of God's goodness. And so I want to just start off with Kelsey's story. But before I do that, I just wanted to, you know, have you share kind of what you do right now, because you're doing some really cool things on these islands. So I would like you to share about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was funny because I know we met through, like you said, our group of friends, but you just recently came out whale watching with me.
Yes, it was so amazing.
That was a really special moment for me to have your entire family out middle of the season. And we had to talk about, like, you know, ebbing and flowing. I had to cancel on you a couple times before we could actually get you out. And we ended up finding a mom and baby, a cow-calf, as they like to say in the whale world. So I am Kelsey Waliszewski, and what I do, I guess my main profession is being a boat captain and boat owner and a whale watch business owner here on the Big Island of Hawaii. So my business is called The Whale Boat. I've been in operation for 5 years, but I've been doing this as a profession for the last 15 years. So I am obsessed with humpback whales.
And my kids know her as Captain Kelsey.
I am. It's a fun thing to be known as Captain Kelsey, and nieces and nephews know me as Auntie KK.
Oh, I love it.
So, and then, you know, just being Auntie here. I don't have kids, so that's what's an interesting thing, being on a podcast. And I want to, you know, you represent the married, the moms, and I represent the singles. So we're going to talk about both, because I think your listeners are probably can be in both categories. You'll have listeners who are moms, married, few kids, lots of kids, and then there are those singles that I tell you, I just feel honored to be on the podcast because sometimes we get overlooked in these conversations, and especially as we're talking about legacy, and it's like, well, who am I going to leave a legacy to, and what does that look like, and how does my wholeness affect others? And it does. It's important, no matter what stage in life we are in, is to pursue Jesus and what does wholeness look like in our relationship with him and our relationship to others. So, but all that to say, I am a boat captain, love humpback whales, own a nonprofit on the side that we take out our local kids for free to go whale watch. And so I just really believe showcasing God's creation is my passion. And it's been my passion for 15 years. But I tell you what, Margarita, my life has not always looked like this. It was, I was in some dire straits at the beginning of my journey. And it's interesting, as I was listening to your story on the first episode of Wholeness.Legacy, and I just really appreciated your vulnerability. Thank you. You started talking about your upbringing, and you know that we're not playing the victim card, or you're not saying that your parents did things wrong. I loved how you said that they did the best that they could. Yes. And I too was raised in a home that loved Jesus and did everything, raised us with our focus on the family, adventures and Odyssey background. And I knew, like you, that there was a higher power out there. And I knew about a God. And I knew he loved me. And I prayed the sinner's prayer probably at the age of 7, got baptized at a very young age, and stamped a Christian and lived my life, junior high, high school, with this idea that I'm a Christian. But I tell you, my salvation, I was always uncertain about. Every youth group, I would go to the front at an altar call, and they'd be like, are you going to heaven or hell? And I came from the Assemblies of God type, and it was like, I think I'm going to heaven, but I want to be sure. And so I was that gal who could go down every altar call just to make sure my salvation was okay, and it was fireproofed.
And I feel like that sometimes having that background and relating so much to what you're saying is sometimes I think how we're presented with at a young age, the gospel is more of on the fear spectrum rather than the love spectrum. And so it instills this fear in us. Yeah. And when we grow up just wanting to get to heaven so we're enough, that breaks some things in us. Yeah. It does not fill the needs that God intended to meet. Yeah. So I love it. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, that Christian journey went from going to Christian college, dating a quote Christian guy who was going to be a pastor, and ended up getting married in 2009 to this Christian guy that was going to be a pastor. And boy, looking back, I'm like, we were crazy, but we were 22 years old who just got hired to be the youth pastors of a church here in Hawaii. And bless the people who hired us and what they were getting themselves into, because I'm like, oh my goodness, 22, thinking that we knew the things we knew or thought we knew. Anyways, I thought my life had reached an all-time. I was married. I had a 5-year plan, and part of it was being in Hawaii. Part of it was in 5 years going back home, which is in Colorado, and being with family there. And just thought, I'm living the life I always wanted to live. Fast forward 2 years later, and my marriage started to spiral. Margarita, I'm a newlywed in a new place, in a new culture, very young, without the support that I wish I had and now know is important. Wow. And David, my ex, also David.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I don't have anything bad to say about him, so we're not blasting the ex here, because it takes two to tango. And I have done a lot of therapy and a lot of work to recognize my fault in my divorce. But we spiraled, and he got let go. We were brought in as youth pastors, and in a couple years, things happened, certain things had happened, and he was asked to resign from the church. And I will tell you, Margarita, a lot of my story revolves around church hurt. I don't know if the listener can relate to that church hurt. But where you're expecting this group of people to come alongside you and support you in difficult times. And what I've learned is the church, as beautiful as it is, it's made up of broken people. Yes. And I don't fault the church. Again, have had to do some therapy to understand that. But I, at the time, very young, newly married, spiraling in my marriage, not getting the support I was hoping for from the church.
And you're saying, from the church.
From the church, which is my support. That you thought. Yeah. And I'm a performer. Yeah. I think you and I can relate to that, because I heard that in your testimony, that we're very driven. God's given us some beautiful gifts to get things done and make things happen. But I also perform for people, and that is where my identity has come from, and I still struggle with it to this day, but the Lord's working on me slowly but surely.
And I'm going to stop you right there, because I want to just say, I think a lot of people, more than we even think we know, can relate to the church wound story, because I feel like, again, there's so many great people, so many great pastors, and we should all go to church because it's a community that we can be a part of. But at the same time, I feel like just, how generations and generation of just this religiosity can teach you a different God than, it just all just tends to be like fear-based in a sense. Like, yes, you're saved by grace, but follow all these rules, but Jesus loves you, but follow all these rules, but Jesus loves you, but if you don't follow those rules, we may not like you, and so there's just all this, like, you have to perform, and a lot of it may come from, upbringing, but I think a lot of it comes from our spiritual homes where we grew up as Christians,
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on the church hurt, because I think identity can be very tied into that. Yes. And then we just happen to go the extra mile of being employed by this said community. Yes. And so I just spiraled. We just spiraled. And I tell you, Margarita, as I reflect on my journey, I'll share some redemptive. Remind me at the very end how God's redeemed the church hurt in only ways that He can.
I love it.
But as we're going back to that 2011 version of Kelsey, I am watching my partner, who promised me that he would love me forever, fall away and walk away and not want to resolve or work on our marriage.
Wow.
I was watching a community who didn't know what to do with these young 24-year-olds at this point, and thought that it would be best for us to leave the church just because it would be healthier for the church to do so. And I'm thinking, but we need you the most right now, but the decisions were made. And so I'm feeling ostracized from the group and the community that you've been a part of, and starting to lose trust in the husband that had said I do, and he would love me until the day I die. Both of those represented Jesus, Christianity.
Yes.
And I walked away from my faith. And I will say this, I just believe so wholeheartedly that there was still something in me that knew there was something to this Jesus.
Yes.
But I didn't want anything to do with the people that professed his name. And so I started to find a different group of people. David and I had moved to the west side by this point of the Big Island. And we just became roommates. To a few months into that was, he came home and said he wanted a divorce. And so that spiraled the divorce, the D word that I was told in premarital to never say.
Yes.
And I just couldn't believe that my life had come to this. It was, 2 years before that I was thinking, I've arrived. And now 2 years, I'm spiraling. I'm alone. I'm hurting. I have no community that I can trust.
Wow.
And I felt pretty helpless in that season. And so what was interesting is I got a job working as a part-time deckhand on a boat.
Oh.
And I couldn't find any other work except for that. But I loved whales. I always wanted to be a marine biologist. Like back in the day, if someone had asked me at the age of 16, what do you want to be? It would have been a marine
story. Here it
biologist.
Comes. Wow.
And, I found out once I graduated high school, I needed to be good at math and science, and it was like, well, there goes the marine biology degree. So I pursued it was a psychology, but for students was kind of my profession, or not my profession, but my collegiate program. And so that's what brought me to Hawaii, was to work with kids. And I used my psychology degree to do so. But then here to come find out I'm in this broken place. And the Lord puts on my plate this opportunity to work on a boat with whales.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, yes. And so I started to go out every single day. And I felt like just being out on the boat, there's something that happens in the brain that, anyways, bilateral stimulation, but it's powerful. And then you're like observing these amazing creatures. And even then, just, kind of the Romans 1, where it's like nature professes there's a God, you know, but I wasn't sure who this God was, because everything, all the people that represented this God let me down.
And actually, being by the water or on the water around creation, it actually calms down our nervous system.
Yeah, it does.
Just naturally.
Yeah.
So how cool is that?
And it gets us into a higher part of reasoning in our brain. We go from fight or flight into a higher functioning where we can process better.
Yeah, it's episode 2. I explained the bridge between the downstairs and upstairs brain, and that is one of the bridges, is being in creation.
Yeah, so that hence why the nonprofit exists. But like God knew, even before I knew the science of what was taking place, was like bringing me back to whales, marine biology, and putting me out on a boat where I was processing so much in a quicker, deeper way. But I didn't know that. Like what was taking place in my brain and the journey to the heart, like was still kind of work behind the scenes that the Holy Spirit was doing, but something was working.
Yes.
And in that job, I had, and this is, I promise, a huge part of my story. I was working for this boat business, and I had to go buy a bunch of shirts from this gal. And I remember walking into this gal's business and buying a bunch of shirts, and she had a cross on her wall. And I remember just brief conversation as I'm handing her the credit card and saying, "Are you a Christian?" And she goes, "Yes." And I just went, And that was that.
Wow.
And I walked out. A year and a half later, now let me tell you what's has gone on in this last year and a half after meeting this gal, buying T-shirts from her.
Let me ask you one question. When you said like did you have all that like bitter taste in your mouth?
I hadn't stepped into a church since leaving the church. Like, that was not a safe place. And so asking her that was kind of like, are you even safe? I'm not even sure you're safe right now, and I don't want to get in that discussion. And I just more kind of like observe, if you're going to bear a cross, what does that mean? Like, how are you going to act it and represent that?
Wow.
And so that was like the reason I asked the question.
And so many hurt people, they do that.
Yeah.
They put other Christians on stage. Like, if you say you're a Christian, you better act like you're a Christian.
Yeah.
And most of us don't.
Yeah. And I don't know what I was expecting from her in the minute and a half I had with her. Poor thing. But it was an interesting. But
it's just our wounds, coming out.
Those wounds rear their ugly head. Oh my gosh, Margarita, I just got in that year and a half. So that was pretty soon after getting a part-time job as a deckhand. We're divorcing. We're in the process of divorce. And I'm just spiraling even more. And my world's getting darker. I'm putting a lot of time and attention into a sport called kiteboarding and just trying to get out on the water. But distraction. I'm just distracting myself. And the wounds are just deeper and deeper as I'm recognizing that this divorce is taking place. Like, there's no turning back. This is happening. I don't know if anyone has been divorced that's a listener of yours, but sometimes you go, okay, you throw that D word out and then you hope that it doesn't happen.
Right. And I'm sure there's so much feelings attached to that being a Christian,
Yes.
Just a sense of failure, maybe guilt even, and you can talk about a little bit about what those feelings that you felt.
Well, that's exactly where it started. Is I'm the first person in my family for generations to get divorced. So as we talk about shame, as you are a people-pleasing person.
Yes.
And I'm the first person to divorce in my family for generations.
Wow.
That shame is just taking over my identity of who I am. Like, I disconnect from friends who've known me for many years. I go on Facebook and I just start unfriending. My family barely knows what's happening because I don't want to bring them in.
Right.
The shame that has enveloped me is so deep and so real. And I just don't even know who I am at this point. I'm not, my faith, everything about my foundation has been shaken.
Wow.
The person who I said I do to and I love, we're divorcing. I'm not stepping foot in a church building anymore, and I'm a so-called professed Christian. I'm doing things that I'm not proud of in my life, but it's with a community that's actually accepted me and calls me a friend. And so, Margarita, I'm going to take you fast forward a couple years as my life is just spiraling. At this point, I filed the paperwork for divorce. David and I didn't have much at the time, so we didn't really need to, have lawyers involved or things like that. Right. And sadly, divorce is a little too easy here in Hawaii. And so the paperwork's initiated. I'm waiting for the judge to say, yes, you're officially divorced. And I happened to be working on I don't even know what day of the week it was. We'll say it was a Friday. And I've been on the boat for the morning, come to my car, and there's 2 missed messages. The first message is from the judge's office, and I'm listening to them as voicemails at this point. And they say, "Hi, Miss Waliszewski. This is the judge's office, and I just want to let you know that your paperwork has been finalized. The judge has approved it, and you can come pick up your divorce decree whenever is convenient." And Margarita, if I take myself back to that, Kelsey, I was sitting in my car and I just remember weeping in my car because all that darkness, all that shame, all the failure, all the things that I've done since despite God, despite Christians, despite my husband, they're just the heaviness. I can't even describe the weight. It was so huge.
Yeah.
And I'm just weeping, and I just don't know what I'm going to do with my life at this point.
Yeah.
And I go and I look at my second missed call, and these are about an hour apart, but I'm listening to them within minutes apart because they're voicemails. And I go to the second, and I don't recognize the number. And it was the gal that I had met a year and a half ago buying a T-shirts from. She goes, Kelsey, this is Diane. I don't know if you remember me at all, but you bought T-shirts from me back in the day. I've moved off island since then. And I've been praying, and the Holy Spirit put your name on my heart today. And he wanted me to call you, and he wanted me to tell you he has a plan and a purpose for your life. I don't know if this means anything to you, but I needed to be obedient to the Holy Spirit. You don't need to call me back if you don't want to. Have a good day. This is Diane. Margarita, that conversation, that obedience from that lady changed the trajectory of my life. I know you said that there was a really dark season of your life where you contemplated suicide, and that heaviness and that darkness that I felt from that initial judge's office phone call was so real, of going, why do I even need to exist on this planet anymore?
It's like all hope is gone completely.
All hope is gone. And and for the Lord to use a random woman who I barely met and just happened to point out, are you a Christian? And not give any more conversation to that question, to use her to call me within an hour to say, I see you in all your failure and all your shame, and you don't have to be someone for me to love you. You don't have to be someone for me to have a plan and a purpose for your life. I've created you as Kelsey Waliszewski, and that's who you are, and that's who you always will be. And I'm calling you out of that shame and that failure. I called her right back, and we had a great conversation, and I told her that I said, I don't know what your obedience will do for my life, but I have to thank you for being willing to make that phone call. Because I also think in my own life how many times I felt prompted from the Holy Spirit to make a phone call or say something, and it's like, oh, it's so Christianese, like he loves you and has a plan and a purpose for your life. But the timing, you can't deny the timing of what's taking place in someone's life.
And talk about the goodness of God. I mean, this is not a God who needs you to perform.
No.
This is a God who sees you at your lowest and is like arms wide open. I just love how he loved you to the depth of your soul in your lowest. That's so beautiful, Kelsey.
In the way I knew, if it came from my family, if it came from a cousin, if it came, I would not have heard it. They would have had the best of intention. I would not have heard it the same. And just the timing of it was so intentional and so him. And so to the listener, I have always felt, if you are listening to this and you feel like you're in my shoes, you're in that car, the darkness is heavy on you, may I be that Diane in your life through Margarita's podcast to say he has a plan and he has a purpose and he loves you and he sees you. And there is no mistake that you're listening to this podcast today because he wants to remind you that shame, failure, those identifying factors that we can cling on to are not our identity at all, and he wants to release and free us from those. And I will say it took me a while. It wasn't instantaneous, 180 transformation. The next day I'm just bounced back. It's been a journey.
But sometimes we need that little bit to just make it to the next day, that little bit of a fresh breath of hope almost, you know. And I wanted to comment on what you said earlier, and I want to tell the listeners that there's nothing you can do to make God love you more. And equally, there's nothing you can do to make God love you less. He just loves you. And that's so beautiful.
The journey of his goodness has been a journey for me.
Yes.
Like, it's interesting as I still even unpacked in my adult years and even post this thing that God did back in my life, back in 2013. And I that's what grounds me to know that he is real and that he does love me and he has a plan and a purpose, and there's just no doubt in my mind that he exists. But it is interesting how quickly we can fall back into the performance.
Oh gosh.
Or question his goodness and his faithfulness. I find myself still to this day going, wow, the Lord has proven himself over and over again. And yet I still am so much like the Israelites that I'm like, is this really a thing? Like, God, are you still real? Are you still there? Like,
it's that pesky old programming, you know, when we're so used to, when it's like seared into our brain as a child to put these defenses up for self-preservation. And when things get really rough, when we're adults, we just go right back into those self-preservations because they worked for us. We relied on them. And so even if we've broken them off, it's easy for us just to slip back there because it's natural, it's easy. And so the more we get out, the more we reprogram our brain, renew our mind, eventually we will get to a place where that's not natural anymore.
It is a daily thing.
Yes, and that's what it takes to program your brain. It's a I can't say that word.
Repetitious.
Repetitive. Repetitive thing that you do daily. You know, like sometimes when I do affirmations with clients, I tell them, look in the mirror and tell yourself this daily, you know. And at first it feels dumb and uncomfortable because you don't, like, have you ever looked in the mirror and said, I love you, Kelsey? How would you be comfortable even doing that? You know, like that's, and when we get into these healthy patterns, you know, at first they're uncomfortable and even weird and like feel like unnecessary or stupid even, but once you start doing it, it's like your spirit is like quenched and it starts getting into our soul, then it starts registering into our body and eventually it starts resonating and starts becoming normal.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, it's one of those that I do feel like, in full transparency, that you know, I look as fast forward and we talk about being a business owner and running a nonprofit. It's still very performance based for me. And so, you know, you and I have discussed and we've had coffee where there's certain things that in our conversation I've thought, you know, I'm not fully healed. I'm not fully whole. There's some things that I still need to surrender to the Lord and still need to dig at as to who he is and who I am. Getting that to that root, like you start your first podcast of just, who am I? Like that. And I've always thought, well, that's an easy question. Is it though? It's not. It's not.
Sounds easy.
Much harder than I thought and anticipated. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to taking my journey a little bit deeper as I've recognized that there's still some things that need to be uprooted.
And, you know, sometimes there's, like you talked about the root, you know, sometimes there's this big root, like a really deep root that I call a stronghold. And you know how when you dig a plant up, there's just this one really thick root, and off that root there's all these little other roots. I call them little fragments that are still sometimes can be stuck inside of us, and little pieces that we just need to deal with. And so it may not be like this whole draining long process because you may have already dealt with that deep stronghold root. And so we're just kind of picking up the pieces and cleaning up the fragments, the little offshoot lies.
I think that's what probably the rest of our lives we do. Do you feel like we ever reach because I know Wholeness.Legacy and we're striving for wholeness, but also the humility that we need Jesus every day is, you know, like it's progress. It's a journey. It's something we never arrive to, but it's something we continue to initiate in our lives and see the fruit of it as we do.
Totally. Yeah, I call it kind of the sanctification process. I mean, the Bible talks about sanctification. The Bible talks about renewing our mind. It talks about us becoming mature sons and daughters of God. And all those phrases involve a process, and like I said in my third podcast, when we get saved, our spirit becomes one with Christ, with God's spirit. And so because our spirit's outside of space and time, we're in completion, right? But because our bodies and our souls are inside of time, it's still like catching up to that salvation that our spirit's fully living in right now with Christ in heavenly places. So it's a process of sanctification, of all of that going first in our soul, then into our body. And then when we fully mature, we'll be the mature sons and daughters of God, like the scripture talks about. But I don't think that happens overnight. In fact, if we read the Bible, if we read all the stories, all the testimonies, everything, it doesn't.
Yeah. So true.
Here we are, strap in. It's a lifelong journey, but it's well worth it.
Oh, it's so worth it. And it's so interesting. Margarita, if I'm going to be, again, I'm a little bit vulnerable as a single gal, like in all honesty, I want to be married. Kids, I've never known if I was fully like going to have my biological kids or if it would be adoptive, but I want to be a mom.
Yeah.
And so I'm still on a journey of questioning sometimes God's goodness in being in a season and just being like, this isn't the season I've signed up for. This is, as much as it's amazing to be out with whales and things like that, it has its challenges. It has its hard. It has its loneliness. And when we still, after having an experience like that with the Lord, I always read in the Bible, even like Paul, who had the, road to Damascus, like fell off his horse, like there was a true 180 overnight transformation in his life. Just reading, then going into Acts 16, that there were still like, well, aren't we supposed to go to Asia? Well, that door closes. And aren't we supposed to be here? Well, that door closes. And well, maybe we're supposed to be. There's still those questions. There's still those doubts. They're still wrestling with what exactly this faith looks like.
Right.
And going back to church, and I just would love to bring that full circle if I can. So it took me even a little while. I was not going to church right away. It was still like, okay, I can trust this woman named Diane, but I still don't know about the rest of the Christian, community. And I would say it still was several years before I stepped foot in a church, much less the church that I felt like ostracized me. In 2020, this is a very random story, but I was kiteboarding in Oahu, met a friend. She needed to come over to the Big Island to check on a house that her family owns. And I said, hey, it's 2020. I'm not doing anything. I can pick you up from the airport, drive you to this house in Hilo. Come to find out, this house in Hilo was being rented by probably my, quote, enemies of that church time.
Oh, no.
And I thought, oh my goodness, I have not seen them since 2011 when we left the church.
Wow.
And I don't think they like me very much. And they were a huge part of that church hurt. And this is funny that I'm heading to their house right now with this newfound friend from Oahu who happens to be the owner of this house that they're renting. So I'm driving thinking, God, you have a funny sense of humor. And drop her off, and I'm thinking, I don't even think I can be on their property. But I stay in my car, and the guy recognizes me, and he goes, Kelsey? And I'm like, hi. Wow. And then his wife hears that, looks over, sees me, Kelsey? I'm like, oh, hello.
How did you feel in that moment?
Oh, I was so nervous. Ugh. I was so nervous. But I also was like, God, you're up to something. Because I feel like you do these really weird, where I'm not in control of it at all, and
there's
only you can be.
There's no coincidences, right?
And so the lady invites me on her lanai. And in Hawaiian culture, I feel like there's like the inner courts and there's the outer courts.
Oh my gosh.
And like the lanai is the outer court, but it's still like a big deal to be invited onto someone's lanai. And so she invites me to kind of start talking. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. We go into the inner court, the kitchen. She invites me into the kitchen, Margarita.
Wow.
And
that's
I'm
like the Holy of Holies.
It's the Holy of Holies in the Hawaiian culture. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a big deal. And we're still just very like small talk. I think she's not sure of me. I'm not sure of her. And then all of a sudden she takes my hand and she looks me in the eye and she goes, I am so sorry for what happened 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I just also looked her in the eye and I said, I am so sorry too. Because again, it takes two to tango.
Right.
And we need to stop playing the victim.
Right.
And we need to take ownership for all that we do. But that ho'oponopono, which for the listeners, if you don't know, it's the art of reconciliation here in Hawaii. And it's a beautiful way they do it. But that was not ho'oponopono is often man-created.
Right.
That was a God-created moment.
Right.
And I felt the weight just fall. And Hilo became a new place for me. I could come in and be free. And I now, to this day, partially attend that church. And I say partially as I'm not fully on the east side just yet. I still live on the west side. But I am now part of that congregation once again. And so the full circle that God has taken, not just any church, but to bring me back and to have reconciliation and not coming back as a paid anything, not coming back with my ex-husband, just coming back as a believer in Jesus to be in community with other people.
That is so powerful, Kelsey.
I have to just share that because that, again, was like, only he gets the glory because I could not have arranged that at all.
Gosh, yeah. I don't like to say that there's coincidence. They're just divine appointments.
Yeah.
Like, so next time you're like, whoa, was that a coincidence? No, it was a divine appointment. Like, get curious about why, you know? I mean, obviously this was a very obvious one, but there's some times where they're not so obvious. We're like, whoa, I feel like, it just happens, and we just need to get curious about these coincidences because there really aren't.
Yeah. And they do think, and like God knows what he, like in his love and in his goodness, he knows what's best for us. And that's what I'm trying to trust in. And he knew that was a forgiveness piece that needed to take place before moving on with my healing.
And sometimes he doesn't do that. Sometimes he's preserving you from places that he knows are still so raw, and you're not ready for.
Yes.
So there's also that option, because I just would hate for somebody to listen to this like, oh man, I need to go back to that really toxic situation. And so I just want to make sure, you'll know when it's God led.
And it was like, I didn't initiate it, nor did they, because I think if I had initiated it, they would not have been ready. And if they had initiated it, I wouldn't have been ready. But it was just saying yes into these small little micro movements that was God to say, I know both parties and now you're ready.
Gosh, what a powerful, beautiful story, Kelsey.
Yeah. It's a journey.
Thank you so much. That's just so raw and real and vulnerable and transparent. Thank you so much. That takes courage.
Oh, thanks
and you're a very courageous woman, my friend.
Oh, thanks for listening, and for those who are tuning in. I appreciate it.
I did want to go back. You said something about being single. And you said that there's some moments where, you're still questioning the goodness of God. You're still, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So what do you do in those low moments? Just for people who, are relating to your story, is there anything that you have like in your back pocket that you're like, ooh, I do this when this happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I can speak to a more recent event. And that would be just a few weeks ago. I was really feeling that loneliness in a raw, real, huge way. And I was audited. I finally, instead of sulking in that or feeling like I can be a recluse, like where I just want to withdraw from human and society, and I just start to have a lot more self-doubts and more insecurities pop up and all of the things. I was like, okay, I was doing pretty good up until this point, and now in the last few weeks, the loneliness is really starting to hit me hard. I'm going to audit what I'm doing with my time, because is there anything that I am doing with my time that is helping contribute to the loneliness, good or bad? And for me personally, Margarita, I started to recognize the doom scrolling on my phone
That's a big
was a huge part of my time. And then as I reflected on that, I thought I'm not intentionally comparing, but as you're doom scrolling, you're just comparing like, oh, there's my friend with 5 kids. Oh, there's my friend with a husband. Oh, they're on vacation together. And again, not that I'm doing that intentionally, but subconsciously, that's what my soul is soaking in. And I also recognized that as I was just feeling lonely and not having much to do in the evenings, because people are busy, I was filling my time. I kind of have a rule that after 5 o'clock, there's no, or like before 5 o'clock, there's no TV in my world. But after 5, it's free reign. And I was finding myself binging on shows where I'm usually like, I'll do like a little bit of the news just because I need to know the weather and kind of what's happening in the world. And then I do a TV show, maybe 2, but I was getting caught up in like 3 to 4 episodes because I was telling myself like, there's nothing else to do. And so as you compare doom scrolling with the TV, and that was my addiction and the numbing that was taking place, I just thought, this isn't healthy. This is what I feel comfortable doing, but I know it's not good for me. And so I stopped it. I told myself I'm going to not be on social media scrolling. I still have to post for my business, but I'm not clicking on that person in the reel. I'm not going, moving my finger up to see what's taking place in other people's lives. And then as far as TV, like I still need to do weather, but there's no TV shows in my life. And that's like for me personally, I don't know if the listener can relate to that in particular.
Because I don't feel like those things in themselves are necessarily bad, or even you go through seasons where you're just like, I need to numb out, and I'm not saying, but again, get curious, Are you staying there for way too long? What is the motivation behind this behavior? Because it could be fine for a season or for a reason, but if you're staying there and like you said, you're starting to feel depressed, you're starting to feel lonely, then there's something there that you need to take a second look at.
And auditing our time. I guess for me,
that
was
word auditing.
I had to audit my time. And I feel like I could do the opposite and being a workaholic. And when I look, and I can also bury myself in work as a single, because it's like, well, there's nothing else except my baby is my business. And so I have to audit my time. So I think still a work in progress, but I do feel like I've become more conscious of just where my time is being spent. So
then the question becomes, what do you do with your time if you're not doing the doom scrolling and the binge watching or the working, what do you do?
So I've started to read books. I've just thought, okay, if I want life in my life, and I want hope, and I want peace, and I want joy, if I really believe Jesus is who he says he is, the Bible is what it says it is, then I need to be just consuming my time with people that are reflecting that well. Not perfect. People are always going to disappoint, and I give so much grace, more grace than I did 20-some years ago. And but I also started to read more, and just picking up some books that weren't fictional, although that would probably be fine, because I always think fiction books are just a way people worship because they're using their creative gifts to write. But for me, I just needed to pick up some books that kind of pointed me back to who Jesus was. And that, again, it's not going to be my story all the time, but it's just in this moment. You just happen to ask, and I'm like, I'm in the no scrolling and no TV show until end of March.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so great.
It's hard, but it's fine.
So what's your current read?
I wish I had it. I'm not good. It's this is when I'm like,
or the title, at least. I know I'm really bad at authors' names. I don't take the time. I don't know
why. Okay, I remember, but I don't know the name of the author, but it's Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools.
Oh, okay. That sounds really
interesting. And a mutual friend of ours, who also is going through a very hard season, recommended it. And so as I recognize her hard season, I have... and I won't say the name of her, but she's going through breast cancer, stage 4.
Wow.
And so she's on a journey of, as she just doesn't know what the future holds for her, but watching her grow closer to Jesus and shed a lot of identity. And so she recommended this book, so I had to pick it up.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. All right, Kelsey. So one other question I have for you is we were talking a little bit when I was on the boat. And oh gosh, by the way, you guys, if you're on the islands, you've got to go check out whale watching, specifically with Kelsey, because I don't think anyone else could make it as amazing and as insightful as she can, and fun as well.
And it's a team thing. It's not just me.
I mean, it is a team thing,
It's a team
but I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. But we were talking about how you may have a different direction in life. Would you be able to share on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, that's also an interesting thing. So it is official because the business is for sale.
Okay.
So I feel like I can go public and say that for 15 years I've been working with humpback whales, 5 years owning my own business. And I could be wrong and not hearing the Lord correctly, but I do feel like there's a shift. And the crazy thing is people are like, well, what's your next? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And so that's also scary to release something and not know what you are clinging onto and what's next. But I feel very strongly that the Lord has given me the words release and receive. And the concept of releasing allows for space to be made for something new.
Wow.
And so I could be very wrong, and that we may have a part 2 of our conversation in the next 6 months to a year. And you go, are you still with the whale boat? And I'm like, yes. And it's not because I don't love the whales. I don't love the whale boat, but for 15 years I've been doing this. My skin can't take the sun as much as my dermatologist continues to remind me. And my body too. It can just be a lot being out on the open ocean. I have my own PTSD of things that have happened in 15 years out on the ocean.
Sure.
And so I do feel like just health-wise, my nervous system, my skin, my mental health could take a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And so trying to be obedient and doing what I know to do. And so there may be a story, a part 2, where the Lord, here I am saying, I don't know what's next. And it would be kind of cool to come back in 6 to 9 months to be like, oh my gosh, Margarita, you had no idea, like kind of like that, journey of reconciling Ho'oponopono, where the Lord has his fingerprints on it.
Yes.
I kind of hope that this next season is that, where I don't like lights our lamp, like the lamp unto our feet. He's just lighting the next step in my life and not giving me the entire picture. And like we started this conversation, is if we knew the entire picture, we probably would run the opposite direction. And so he knows us best, that he gives us little pieces at a time. And I have to listen to the stirring. Like, who's going to give up a whale business that goes out and watches whales, works 4 months out of the year, and then 8 months can do a little philanthropy and travel, and I lead trips to Tahiti to swim with whales. But so it's kind of weird for people, like, why would you leave that? And I'm like, I don't know, except that the shifting in my heart and my life is telling me that could be a possibility.
Right. I call it the grace has been lifted. And it's not that necessarily you don't like doing what you were doing. It's just the grace for that season has been lifted and it's moving somewhere else. And so there's just this unrest, unpeace. Like it becomes this peace that you had before, in that season. And so that's kind of how you can tell when the grace has been lifted. And even though I so love how you so vulnerably shared that you don't know what's happening, and how scary is that, you guys? And I could relate, because we're kind of like in the same season of life where we're both stepping out and doing something new, something courageous, something we don't really know, and we're just stepping out. And like you said, the light. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kelsey, just this Wednesday, I was in this business meeting out of all the places, and all of a sudden there's just like this healing session that's done on me, and I'm just like, wow, what is happening? But one of the things is, in that healing moment, God gave me a light to shine right in front. And I just love how you said that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that just happened to me. And I just feel like he's lighting both of our paths, and just enough for us to step forward and not enough to illuminate the whole entire picture. And it's like, and we also talked about how we're kind of, up there in our age. Why the heck are we starting something new right now? Like my picture of this age would be like, just like the happy family, we've worked our careers and now we're like enjoying the fruits of our labors and going on vacations and doing all these things and just like stable, set,
Yeah.
and everything just comes out from underneath us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. And like, can we do this again?
Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit more scarier, I think, as you get older, because you don't have like, I don't know what it is. What do you think it is as we get older and we get uprooted again,
Well, I just think it's human nature, and probably the cause of the fall is wanting to be self-sufficient.
Oh, yes. That's a big word I've been
That
talking
is
about
why
lately.
we ate from the tree in the first
Right?
place, was wanting to be like God. And so when we are in these seasons where we only get to see the little bit that's in front of us, or that what we think our securities start to crumble, I mean, personally, as I'm reflecting on what's coming up in my season, I'm just like, well, I guess I have to be more dependent on you, God,
Right.
because I have built my own little kingdom that has been
Right.
very self-sufficient,
And
I
safe.
can dictate my own rules and be safe. And it gets to a point where it's not fun. It's funny to like think that's the
Right.
end goal, but it's like, oh, something's missing here.
Right.
And not that we should dismantle something God's given us, because sometimes it takes,
Right.
it's the stewarding and it's the discernment to figure out, do I need to steward this?
Right.
And like I said, we may be here in 9 months and I will be still stewarding a whale watch business. But I do think when he starts to call us away or drawing us into something that's new, at least in my own life, I'm just seeing like that self-sufficiency, which is probably an identity. Like
It is.
it is
It's
one of
linked
those
to our
things.
identity.
And
That's actually the exact word verbiage that was called out of me this last Wednesday.
wow.
Is the self-sufficiency. And so we had to go back to the root of where it came from and deal with that whole, like uproot that root. And I won't go into all the details right now, but that is huge. And I didn't realize the weight I had carried of that self-sufficiency, learning from very early age that I had to take care of me by myself. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's what the root is you've learned somewhere along the line that you had to take care of yourself and no one can take care of you for whatever reason, that's the wound behind it. And so that's a big one, because it doesn't work as a Christian.
No, it does not. It does. And it goes so opposite of what the original intention of
Right.
God and his relationship
Yes.
with us.
Yeah, and so I call it like reaching for that fruit all over again. When we step into self-sufficiency, it's almost like reaching for that fruit again, because you're not relying on God to do it for you.
Yeah.
Like it was intended.
Yeah.
So it's just so powerful. And that's like probably another whole,
It's like
podcast topic.
is podcast 4 or 5. Stay tuned.
But I think you have shared so much amazing insight and wisdom and experience. And I really think that it's going to encourage someone, or even like if somebody wants to reach out for help or help, have us help you walk along the journey. That's partly why we're here, to do this, And so thank you, Kelsey, so much for sharing.
Well, Margarita, can I just say I'm excited to start
course.
doing sessions with you too.
Oh, yay.
Like that's exciting. I think we have one on the books for next week, Monday.
Yes, we do.
And because the humility of it is I still need to uproot some things. And I love how humble you are just to be here to say like Wednesday, like
So do I, apparently.
like we all do.
Always.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, I think that we're both on the brink of something really exciting. And we might have to do a but a continuation in a year or however long,
Wouldn't that be so cool?
That would be really cool. So
I think that's going to have to happen.
it is going to happen.
We'll have to listen back and be like, whoa, what God has done.
The silliness. We're like, if only we knew then what we know now. Isn't that how life works all the time?
Hindsight is 2020. I used to have that domain. I knew I wanted to do something with that because I was like,
gosh.
hindsight is 2020. I'm like, that is so how life works.
That is yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time and for joining us. And we can't wait to see what's going on in your life.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.